Hi, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Kerry Siggins, and I'm so glad you are here today. Welcome to my first solo episode of 2025. I am so excited to be here. I hope that you had a fantastic holiday season and that 2025 is off to an awesome start for you. It's been really fantastic. I just feel like there's so much potential in 2025, and I'm really excited to see where 2025 takes us. Today, I want to talk about having the courage to show up. I had the opportunity to buy a wall hanging, some wall art with the Theodore Roosevelt quote about the man in the arena. And I just love this quote. It really, really resonates with me because when you are a person who is trying to do big things, lead, to disrupt, to do things differently, not everybody understands it. And there's a lot of critics that are out there. And this quote resonates because it's about doing the work. It's about having the courage to show up. So I'm going to read you the quote and then I'm going to talk about where it comes from and how you too can have the courage to show up and do big things that the universe is calling you to do, that your team is calling you to do, that your family is calling you to do, that your soul purpose is calling you to do. All right, so I'll read you the quote now. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man or woman who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by death and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold, timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So, this is just such a powerful quote. It's about taking action. It's about stepping into the arena and doing big things. It's about overcoming the fear that you have of failing, of being judged, of being criticized, of being made fun of, that we all have as humans, some of us more than others. But we are called to do big things and we have to get in the arena, especially as leaders. We've got to show up for our teams. We have to make hard decisions. We have to have difficult conversations. And those decisions aren't always right. They're not always popular. They're not always understood because people don't see the bigger picture. There's this fear of change. And so people judge and they question. And especially if you're a leader who does put themselves out there and really shows up with heart and passion and effort and wanting to do good, sometimes things are going to not work out the way that you want. And it can feel really tough, especially if you get those criticisms, but you have to keep going. And it really resonates because I've overcome so many challenges in my life, the vast majority of them self-induced. But, I just keep showing up. And when you keep showing up, good things happen, great things happen. And we might not see it in the moment, but we certainly see the growth over time, especially if we look back and look at how far we've come. And that's what this is all about. This life is about showing up, doing the work, learning and growing. And you can't do that if you're not in the arena. And you won't get in the arena if you are worried about what people think. So that's why I wanted to share this today, because as you go into 2025, now is the time to dare greatly. It's a time to get into the arena. It's time to do big things despite criticisms, despite fear, despite judgments. We have to do bold things as leaders. So today we're going to talk about what being in the arena means. I'm going to give you some examples, and I'm going to share some actionable tips that will help you find the courage to take action and rise above that criticism, whether that's self-criticism or criticism from others, rise above that fear and really step into the arena. So before we jump in, let's talk about where this quote comes from. I want to explain the historical backdrop of Roosevelt's speech and talk about why it is so relevant in this world of constant judgment, social media criticism, fear of failure, etc. Theodore Roosevelt delivered the speech, Citizens in a Republic, on April 23rd, 1910. He gave this speech in Paris, France. At the time, Roosevelt was a former US president, and he was touring Europe as a global statesman. His speech was a call to action, encouraging individuals to take active roles in shaping their societies and to value effort and courage over passivity and criticism. Now, this is just as relevant in 2025 as it was in 1910 because we all need to have the courage to show up and to help shape our society, not just take a passive backseat in what the world is looking like. And his message really reflected his belief that democratic nations thrive when their citizens engage meaningfully and even at the risk of failure. In the speech, he warned against the dangers of cynicism, emphasizing that progress comes from those who are willing to step in the arena, to strive valiantly, not to be critics from the sidelines. And this message really resonated deeply with those who heard it because he lived those ideals. Having overcome personal challenges and leading a life of bold actions, his words carried authenticity and power because he was a man in the arena. He dramatically reshaped what the United States and the world looked like in his presidency. And today, the Man in the Arena passage stands as a timeless reminder to dare greatly, to prioritize effort and action over fear of judgment or failure. So, what a great reminder as we are starting a new year where the world is full of all kinds of issues. We've got geopolitical strifes, we have wars going on, we have so much polarization. And we have to really come together. And we as leaders are responsible for bringing people together. And that's why I really like this quote because effort and action matter more than judgment. And if you are afraid to step into the arena and do what's right as a leader, as a company, as an organization, then you're sitting on the sidelines and just letting things happen. And let's face it, criticism sucks. It doesn't matter how thick of a skin you have. And as a leader, you've got to develop a thick skin. It still hurts. We don't want to be criticized. We want people to be able to see our vision and to respect us and even like us. And likability does matter, but we can't not do things because we are afraid of people's opinions, because we're afraid that people aren't going to understand our decisions or because people might not agree with us. It's okay. That's going to happen, but we still have to take bold action based on our principles, our values, and knowing that what we're doing is right for our teams and for our companies. And that's why I really love this idea of those in the stands have opinions, but those in the arena know the struggle. There's not a whole lot of CEOs out there in the whole vast ecosystem of the workforce. And a lot of people don't understand the pressures of being a CEO or being an executive or doing disruptive activities to really change the world and change the industry. But a lot of people have opinions on it. And it's really important to remember that those in the arena, they just don't know the struggle. And so you can't stop executing that bold vision because you're afraid of those opinions, because you don't want people to dislike you or to not respect you. And so I believe that showing up is really what matters. It's not about being perfect. It's not about always making the right decisions. It's about showing up. It's about leading with humility. It's about sharing the why. It's about having that bold vision and moving your company and your team to a better place. And it's about saying, yeah, I screwed up if you make a mistake, or apologizing when you need to apologizing. That's what showing up is all about. It's not about being perfect. Let's face it, perfection is a fallacy anyway. There is no possible way that any of us can be perfect, and that should not even be the goal. Wanting to be perfect stops us from getting into the arena. It makes us not do that work that we know we're supposed to do, that we're meant to do, because we have a fear of it not being good enough. Well, I will tell you, taking action is the right thing to do. And you don't have to be perfect. And that's what showing up means, to go into that arena and to dare greatly and to live boldly. So, I'd like to share a few of my personal stories about showing up in the arena. I remember a time early in my career when I was talking with a customer, and he was a VP in a very big company, had been in the industry for a long time. And he was very chauvinistic. And I'm saying that honestly, not just because I assumed it, like that is absolute truth. And he told me that he couldn't believe that John and Jerry, the two founders of Stone Age, hired me to take over the company. And he said, you need to be technical to make it in this industry. And so the way that I took it and the way that I believe that he meant it is, you're not technical enough because you're a woman. And he was highly critical of me to other people in the industry. So this was a tough thing for me because this is early on in my career at Stone Age, and I wanted to prove myself, and I was still in the early stages of understanding myself and understanding that I do have this deep need for recognition, understanding my personality, it was very triggering. And I had to think about, how do I really want to show up in the face of this criticism of, I don't think you're going to make it. That's what he told me flat out. I just don't see that you're going to make it in this role. At the time I was a general manager. And so I decided that I was going to dare greatly. I was going to get into the arena and I was going to do a great job. I was going to learn everything that I could about our industry, about our products, not to prove him wrong, but to prove it to myself that I had what it takes to be a general manager and eventually a CEO. I didn't know that that's where it was going at the time, but I decided to dare greatly and just show up and do a great job and lead Stone Age and put myself out there in the industry, become a thought leader, really drive the industry forward and not worry about what this really important person within our industry thought of me. And that was such an area of growth because doing it to prove to myself that I had what it takes, that was such a much more positive approach than doing it to prove somebody wrong. I had spent so much of my life doing things because I wanted to prove myself and it led me to some really dark places, and I decided that I wasn't going to do that this time, that I was going to be great at my job and lead Stone Age well because that's what the company needed. That's what my team needed. And that's what I needed to do to prove to myself that I could be that kind of leader. And over time, I earned his trust and his respect, not fully, but he did tell me that I proved him wrong, that I did a great job of leading Stone Age and really driving the industry forward. So he gave me credit for showing up, for being in the arena, for doing the work. So that was a time early in my career that I jumped into the arena. Another time that I decided to jump into the arena is when I decided to share with my team that I had left Austin, Texas and moved to Durango right before I got my job with Stone Age because I had substance abuse issues and that I had accidentally overdosed on Labor Day of 2006. And it was very scary for me to share this with my team because I had a lot of shame around it. And I thought, how are they going to respect me as a leader if they know that I had a drug problem? And it was something that I had kept not hidden entirely, but I certainly didn't share it broadly at the time. But we were in a team building session and we were working on really getting to know each other better and building a stronger connection within the team. And it was obvious that the moment required some vulnerability. And so I decided to be brave and to share what brought me to Stone Age. And you could hear a pin drop after I shared the story. Not everybody was sure how to respond to it. And I was so afraid that there was going to be judgment, but that is not what happened. In fact, a couple of my team members came up and gave me a big hug and told me how proud they were of me for having the courage to share that story. And then something really amazing happened. One of my team members, who was ex military, this kind of real tough, rough guy, he shared a story about his brother passing and the impact that had on him and got emotional. And it just opened everybody up to being more vulnerable. And I realized how impactful sharing parts of yourself can be. Now, as leaders, we can't overshare. We have to maintain a level of professionalism. But me sharing my story of substance abuse, addiction, overcoming an overdose, and dramatically changing my life has changed people's lives because they have been able to share their stories with me. I have been able to help them. It has given people hope that they can do these things too. And even though it felt really scary at the time and I wasn't sure if it was appropriate for a professional setting, I am so incredibly grateful that I did it. And sharing the story has changed my life. It's part of the reason why I wrote my book, The Ownership Mindset. It's part of the reason why I did this podcast, is that we all need to connect with each other, and no one is perfect and everybody screws up. And some of us like really screw up. And man, I really screwed up my life. And when we connect on those shared experiences of making mistakes, of hitting rock bottom, of feeling like there's no possible way that you can dig yourself out of the hole that you dug, you can be inspired by somebody else's story of overcoming that challenge. So that was another really important moment of stepping into the arena for me. And then I'll share one more quick story that is really about making a big business model change at Stone Age. Back in 2013, we decided we were going to dramatically change our product offering, going from manual tools to semi automated and now automated systems, which dramatically has changed the company in so many ways more than what I was expecting back then. But it was really, really scary to make these decisions. And one of those decisions that had to be made was changing our go to market strategy. And we sold our product through distribution. And then we decided we were going to go direct in our most important markets. And there was a lot of people who did not agree with those decisions. And they were really scared of what it was going to change and if we were going to be successful. And so I still had to chart that course and lead with poise and with grace and with understanding and explaining the why and transparency because I could see what the future was going to be like and it wasn't going to work the way that we were doing it and it was going to require a pretty dramatic change. Now there were some things that I should have done differently and with the benefit of hindsight of course, but I had to really step into the arena and make those decisions and I made a lot of people mad and there are still people who do not like me because I changed the nature of our relationships with our distributors and people in the industry. But it was absolutely the right thing to do for the company. We would not be where we are today if we wouldn't have made that decision. But that was really, really tough. And I could give you a million more examples, but those are just a few. And hopefully it just gives you some food for thought about how you're going to step into the arena. Like, what tough decisions do you need to make in your life or within your team or within your company? How do you transform yourself and transform your team by making these big bold moves or even if they're just small changes or sharing a story that allows people to connect with you because you are being more vulnerable. There's so many different ways to get into the arena. And if you don't because you are worried about what people are going to think or say or their opinions, then you are going to live a much smaller life than what you are meant to live on this planet. That's what some of these stories hopefully will inspire you to take action in your own life because you can change your life, even if it's uncomfortable in the moment. Like all of those things were incredibly uncomfortable. I was scared. I didn't know if I was making the right decisions. I definitely didn't want people to dislike me, to hate me. And that happened, but I still knew it was the right thing to do. And I decided I was going to show up with grace and with gratitude and do everything in my power to be as forthright and honest and transparent and just tell people, like, hey, this is what we're doing and why, even if it was really hard to do. Always do the right thing. That's my mantra. So, those are some stories, and hopefully they can inspire you to step into the arena as well. So, now how do you actually step into the arena? How do you find that courage to do those things, especially if you are afraid of what people are going to think or you are afraid of failure? So, here are my tips. Tip number one, focus on your purpose, not those critics. So, you really need to identify your why so that you can anchor your actions and your decisions into what you're doing, how you're stepping into that arena. So, if you are making a big change within your company, or you are deciding to be vulnerable, or you're going to make a big change in your personal life, right? Understand the why. Why am I doing this? That will help you stay focused when you do get the critics, when you do get faced with fear, or if you do make a mistake, like this is why I am doing it. I believe that this is the right direction for the company, or I believe that we can overcome this challenge and this is why. And I'm going to roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty and fix whatever needs to be fixed. When you have your why in mind, it allows you to build resilience and really focus on moving forward and not pay attention to the people who are saying, no, you shouldn't do this, or why are you doing it, or judging you, or even that inner voice that is saying those same things to you. One of the things that I do to really stay grounded in my goals is I journal. Journaling is such an important way to be able to process. So at the end of every day, I use a website called Dabble Me. It sends me an email reminder every day to journal. And I talk about what went well as I'm progressing towards my goals, where I could improve, what I'm really grateful for. Because when we stay grounded in gratitude, it's really hard to feel anxiety and worry, which is also what we do as humans. So that's a suggestion that I make to you. If you're not journaling, just start, even if it's just a few sentences every single day, talk about your why and what you're doing to progress it forward and what you learned so that you can continue to make better decisions and to stay focused, even if you have fear as you are moving forward. Tip number two is to reframe failure as a step towards growth. I know that this isn't always easy to see in the moment because when we mess up, we beat ourselves up. We feel like, oh, maybe we should stop. But the way that I suggest that you look at failure is that it is an opportunity to learn and grow. Like nothing is going to ever go perfectly. It just isn't. We can't predict outcomes. We can think about outcomes and we can take actions and steps to get to those outcomes. But sometimes things happen. Sometimes we make poor decisions. Sometimes things that are out of our control happen and we don't get the outcome that we want. And those are not necessarily failures, they're opportunities to grow. So I never look at a failure as a failure ever. And it helps me be more resilient and it helps me keep pushing through even when things are tough. Instead, I look at these setbacks as an opportunity to learn. I try to reflect on the lessons, I adjust my plans, and we grow. So I'll share an experience with you that happened in the spring of last year. I had a really key member of my executive management team leave, and there were so many people in the company who were really concerned about him leaving. And I was too. I went to this place of, oh my God, people are going to think that he doesn't want to work for me and that I'm doing something wrong with the company and that he's leaving for a reason that has to do with all kinds of scary things that I thought of. I went into that fear-based mode. I had to pull myself out of it and say, okay, how am I going to handle this with poise? And how am I going to allow people the space to be concerned about him leaving, but also be clear about what's going on in the organization and that we're going to be fine. And there were people who did not think that we were going to be fine. And as we started to navigate through his departure, people realized, oh, okay, maybe this isn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. And as always, when a person leaves, other people have to really step up and fill in the gaps. And so now people who were in leadership roles below this person, they really started to flourish because they had to step up and take on more responsibility. And it was a really good thing for the company. And it was really good for the person who left because he is doing a fantastic job and we're so close. And there's just lots of good things that happen from this growth. But I will tell you that in that moment felt like it was a really big thing. It was really scary. There was a lot to unpack. It was unexpected. And man, I'll tell you that it was some really hard conversations. People have their opinions, people are upset. And there were, like, I was hearing them. And I just had to really stay grounded and say, okay, this is an opportunity for all of us to grow. Me, the team, the company. And that's exactly what happened. So that is just a way to be able to reframe failure as an opportunity for growth. And so many good things can happen when you are dealing with a disappointment, a setback, a challenge. If you say, okay, we're going to learn from this, we're going to be a better company, we're going to be a better team, I'm going to be a better leader because I'm learning and growing because of this challenge, not in spite of it. Tip number three is to develop a strong inner circle. Everybody needs a support system, but especially us as leaders, because it can feel lonely. And you need to have that strong inner circle. Surround yourself with people who are also in the arena doing big things. For me, that's my executive management team. We have really strong relationships and we are tightly connected because we're in there doing the work of building this company. The same thing with all of my employee owners. Right? I have worked really hard to develop strong relationships with them so that they understand where we're going and why we're going there and what kind of company we are and what kind of culture we have. And so they're part of my inner circle. I have my family and my friends who are also doing big things and who are working hard at growing as human beings, as evolving as human beings. And it's so fulfilling to be able to have conversations about the tough things that are going on in our lives and how we're showing up for ourselves every single day, working through the baggage, working through the transitions, the transformations, all of those things. So have a strong inner circle. Have mentors, build those relationships with people on your team, build relationships with your peers, lean on your family. If you have a family that's close, lean on your friends. Having that support system is incredibly important. I would never be where I am today without my support system. In fact, I was just talking about it today. I had two really dear and near people over to my house. One is the wife of the founder of Stone Age, Karen Zink, and then Barbara Gormley, who was my first coach and who's Stone Age's coach now. And I said to them, I'm so incredibly grateful for all the people in my life, for the success that I've had and the life that I've built. And I did not do this alone. I have had such a strong support system. I've had coaches, I've had mentors, I've had strong board members, I've had people on my team who have taught me so much. And I've been able to really, really thrive because of that strong support system. Like, we don't do this alone ever. We're never in this alone. If you feel like you're in this alone, then reach out, build that support system, because it's amazing what you can do when you have people there who are in the arena with you, who are cheering you on and supporting you. You can do big things. Tip number 4 is to detach from external validation. So this one is a tough one for many of us. This is something that I've really had to work on. I'm a 3 in the Enneagram, which is an achiever, which has a high need for recognition. And I love being on a big stage, and external validation was something that was really important to me. And again, it led me to some really dark places. But if you are looking for external validation, then you are always going to look for external validation. And that is not a healthy way to live, because that validation needs to come from within, of saying, you know what, no, I'm doing the hard work of growing, of learning, of becoming a better leader, becoming a better person, really going after the life that I want to live. And if you do things because you want other people to validate you, then you're not living your life. Then you're going to be afraid to step into the arena, because you might say, no, I shouldn't do that. What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if people don't get it? And that external validation stops us from doing the things that we want to do. And because of social media, and it looks like everybody has perfect lives, which is certainly not true. We somehow think, oh, I am not that. I don't have that life. I'm failing. I am behind. And that is simply not true. Don't worry about that external validation. The validation needs to come from within, knowing that you are really working to find that purpose, and knowing that you are doing what your heart, what your soul is meant to do, that you are living and building the life that you want. That is being in the arena, not doing things because you're worried about what other people think. That's really important. So if social media is bothering you, detach from it. Don't get on it. Don't worry about what other people are doing. What are you doing? Practice mindfulness. Do some deep breathing, meditate. Meditating is such a great way to be able to reflect on what your purpose is, and are you doing the things to live that purpose? I meditate daily, and this is a big part of it. It's about really understanding myself, understanding my gifts, and how I'm going to show up to be able to live those gifts so that it makes an impact on the world and that it's fulfilling to me. Because when I'm happy and I'm feeling fulfilled, then that has a ripple effect, and it's the same for you. And then finally, tip number 5, celebrate effort over outcomes. This is so incredibly important. We are such a goal focused society. We're such a win focused society. But let's face it, sometimes we don't get the outcomes that we are hoping for. And we shouldn't feel like that's a failure. Celebrate the effort, what you have done to overcome challenges, what you've learned along the way. And you should reward yourself for showing up and for trying. Congratulate yourself. Like, man, I really put a lot of effort into that. I didn't get the outcome that I was hoping for, but man, I learned a lot along the way. And here's what I'm going to do differently. And here's how I'm going to use this knowledge to do better the next time. That is celebrating the effort instead of the outcome. Listen to my podcast on the gap and the gain. This is also really important, to be able to look at how far you've come rather than still how far you have to go. I'm a huge proponent of this. I talk about it in all my podcasts. That's how powerful this is. Celebrate the effort over the outcome. All right. So hopefully some of those tips resonated with you and gave you inspiration to enter the arena, to do big things, to go after your dreams, to be the kind of leader that you really want to be, and not worry about those critics. That is the point of this quote. And that quote can be about the inner critic too, because a lot of times we're way harder on ourselves than others are on us. But the critic doesn't matter. It's about having the courage to be in the arena. That is what matters. And I would really recommend that you think hard about who you accept criticism from. Now, criticism is different than feedback. Feedback is meant to help you grow. Criticism is about people who are putting you down to try to put you in your place. And social media is filled with them. Those people who are trolling, who do things anonymously, who leave comments but don't have the courage to actually put their name on something or say something directly to you in a way that can actually help you grow and learn. Don't listen to those people. They do not have your best interest at heart. They are not giving you helpful, kind, direct feedback that's there to help you grow. They are there to shut you down, to put you down, to make you feel small. Do not listen to those people. Get in the arena, have the courage to take that action, surround yourself with people who are in the arena who can help you by giving you feedback, by giving you advice, always with the intention of helping. It is so important to strive, to put in that effort, even in the face of fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of criticism, fear of whatever you are afraid of. The call to action really is, what are you doing to be in the arena? What is your arena and how will you show up today? Remember, the credit belongs to those who dare greatly. So go out there and dare greatly, live boldly. That is what makes a fulfilling life. In fact, there's all kinds of research that says that the people on their deathbeds, their number one regret is that they lived their life too much for other people. Don't let that be you. If this resonates with you, I would love to hear your stories. I want to hear how you have been in the arena. So share those with me. Go on to social media. LinkedIn's the best way to be able to communicate with me. Leave comments wherever you are listening to this podcast or on YouTube, and share with me what you're doing to get into the arena and what's one step that you can take today to get into the arena. Making those commitments, especially publicly, it helps you give the courage and commitment to actually do it. All right, with that, I will leave you for your day. I so appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. And if you like this episode, please share it with a friend, whether that's on social media or send a link in the email. Hopefully, it will help any of those people who are close in your life who are afraid of failure, or afraid of criticism or judgment. Be brave and dare greatly and take the action that they need to take in their lives. And of course, if you like this podcast overall, please subscribe to it, write a review for it, share the whole podcast with your network. You can find it on any major podcast platform and on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.